What is up, YouTube and Twitter? I have Ovi Clapbomb. Everybody knows him from X, formerly Twitter. I still call it Twitter. It's like the Sears Tower, Willis Tower thing. But we
Always be
see
Twitter.
that he has the face reveal.
I got a little bit excited for draft time, and I know you just came back from the combine, so I felt like it was a perfect time to hop on and maybe just talk about how we're feeling.
Yeah. So let's just jump right into it because I want your thoughts on the Blackhawks pick at 3, and I'll give my thoughts. But after the combine, seeing all the measurements, who is your pick at 3, and who are some player options?
I mean, obviously, Michael Misa is still my guy. It doesn't look like that's going to present itself as an opportunity for the Blackhawks. So for me, it's a pretty consistent tie between Martone and Haggins. I feel like today I'm leaning Haggins a little bit. If we're missing out on Misa and that, high end skilled dynamic player, it almost feels like Haggins is that player, like a junior version of that player. Like he is very high end skill, probably best hands in the draft, arguably, and he's not that 6'1" frame. That's the only really thing. If he's 6'1", then we're talking about James Haggins in the same conversation as Michael Misa, or certainly less so than we are now. So I think right now I'm leaning Haggins because I feel like we need that running mate for Bedard. I think Haggins really checks that box. And to me, if we're going to go out and get Demidov last year, who is a 5'11" winger, uh, like why are we so worried about size this year? Right? I mean, I understand it, but let's just take the best player in the draft. Let's take the most skilled player in the draft and put him next to 98 and just watch some magic. So that's where I'm at today. Just take Haggins or Martone. Don't big brain this and make it happen, Katie.
Love it. I think that I'm on the same board with you. I want to dive a little bit into the Haggins and Porter Martone thing real quick, but before I do, can I ask you, you saw the Cam Robinson tweet about the Blackhawks interested at number or trading up for Michael Misa. Can you put a percentile on what you think would be the odds that that could happen?
I feel like it's like 15% chance. I feel like San Jose, I feel like Mike Greer is a smart guy. I feel like he's only going to move that pick if it really, really makes his organization better. It makes a lot of sense. And I think the Hawks would have to give up a decent amount to get that. I don't think Darsh is moving the pick at all. I think new GM, I think you just want to keep that pick the best player available. You don't want to go too crazy and have your fan base being like, what is this guy going to be doing for the next 10 years, right? So I would say it's not likely. Like it's not very likely that those picks get moved, especially in the top five. So I would say 15% chance, and that might just be me being a little bit optimistic as a Blackhawks fan who has been gassing up Misa for the entire season. So 15%.
I said 20%, but link in the comments or can you comment in the section below if you guys think that we should do trade packages? Because I feel like that would be really interesting discussion to talk about. Just because like I know Korchinski was someone that could potentially be talked about in that, or someone like Lucas Reichel. But yeah, Darsh is probably not moving off. Mike Rear is very smart, and they've already built up a lot. And Igor Chernyshov had great chemistry with Michael Misa and Saginaw, so it's going to take a lot to
Oh
get him
yeah,
off that
that's
line.
true. I forgot about that.
I just,
And
yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say Celebrini and Misa is just like if that's your 1-2 punch, that's a deadly 1-2 punch. You still have some questions on defense. Sam Dickinson is your number one defender, isn't ideal, but your 1-2 punch of Misa and Macklin is I'm jealous of that 1-2 punch. So I can't see them taking any other player. If you take any other player from either of those two GMs, your fan base is going to be at your door with pitchforks and torches, right? So that's where I'm at.
Yeah, Misa is a tier above Haggins and Porter Martone, but the thing is, like, Haggins and Porter Martone are probably so close to that next tier, in my opinion. I mean, they were close in so many rankings this year and tiers lists. I think Haggins and Martone are very close. I think it's pick which player you want or which role on the team that you want filled. If you're taking Porter Martone, you're trying to get Connor Bedard, there that player, his wing for the next, 10, 15 years. If you're taking Haggins, I think he's going to solidify himself as that second line center. And if he doesn't, then it's going to be Frank Nazar on the wing with Connor Bedard or Haggins on the wing with Connor Bedard because I don't think that Haggins and Nazar are going to play together. And the thing is,
Mhm.
like, my player comp for Haggins is I said Frank Nazar like a little less fast Frank Nazar with more playmaking and vision and ability, because Frank Nazar uses his speed, as you see with those breakouts. So they obviously could be an incredible duo together. But I think that also Logan Cooley is one that we had talked about on like just a show I did the other day, as well as Jack Hughes was his player comp. So if you're getting somebody like Jack Hughes in any sort of way, I mean, if he would have went to another league, if he would have stayed in the US NTDP instead of going to NCAA, I think he would have been probably the number one pick, especially since the Islanders got it. He had
Yep.
37 points in 37 games. It was really tough playing against 22 to 25-year-olds, but this kid is built. I got to talk to him for 20 minutes at the combine. We were just sitting there and we were seeing all of these incredibly tall people walk past, but he did not look like he was much smaller than them. Like I think like you said, the Ivan Demidov thing was brilliant. He was 5'11". I think he ended up being 6 foot at the combine. I think that was
Yeah,
kind of the
he was
big
close
surprise,
to
right?
it. Yeah, it was like, yeah, like 6, maybe
Yeah.
5'11" and a quarters, but he was a little taller than they thought. Thinking about James Haggins too, I remember somebody saying, can't remember where I was listening to, that how much of it was that he just didn't fit as well as he could have with Perot and Leonard. You know, you have two established older guys who are going to be NHL players who have been at that team, who have been kind of the drivers of that team. And then you have Haggins come in, who's a younger guy who typically wouldn't be in that position, kind of trying to slide in and facilitate between two guys who have kind of been playing it a certain way. And then when Haggins was later switched, I can't remember who he was on a line with later in the season. He did quite well. I'll have to find the name. So I just like I could see there's a couple of variables with Haggins between like maybe he was passing off more than he should have been. Maybe he was passing it to Leonard and Perot as more established guys or playing their game more so. And I could just see a situation where he's dynamite in the NCAA next year. I could see 10 games into the NCAA next year, and we're like, James Hagan should have been the first overall pick.
Yeah.
There was
I
some
could see.
circumstances last year that kind of he didn't hit those ceilings that we thought he could have last year, but there's reasons for that. And I really think that James Hagan's could surprise a lot of people in the NCAA next year.
Of that, and I think that you're 100% on. When I look at James Haggins, he took over, obviously knows this, but the Will Smith role. Obviously, Gabe Perreault and Ryan Leonard had an incredible chemistry together. They look like they just knew where you were going to be at all times. And it's very hard for a player that's 17, 18 years old to come in and be a Will Smith role. I mean, he was the number fourth overall pick, and he had multiple years under his belt with those guys. I think
Mhm.
that it was very unfair to put the high pressure on, you know, somebody like James Haggins when you are having to transition and be you have to adapt to the size, the speed,
Mhm.
and the physicality of the NCAA playing against 22 to 25-year-old men. He did a phenomenal job, in my opinion.
Mhm.
37 points in 37 games. And at the Worlds, Michael Misa wasn't even on the Canada World team. There was a very big chance that if James Haggins, if you go back to that overtime game versus Finland when Teddy Stiegel won it, James Haggins was an inch away from ending that entire tournament and getting
Mhm.
gold for the US. If he just lifted that puck a little higher over the goalie's pads, that his draft year would be totally different. This kid was scoring goals in overtime and playoff games. He is clutch. He has said over and over that he watched Patrick Kane growing up. I believe that this guy could be a winger if he doesn't figure it out at center, like the physicality is too
That's
hard in the
that's what I
playoffs.
was wondering about that. I was wondering about that because when I was like looking into when you're looking at where the Blackhawks are projected at third, you get into these names and then you start getting into reasons of why they don't fit, right? So it'll be like, oh, Martone, oh, he's not a good skater, that doesn't fit Kyle Davidson's MO, no go. And then you Hagens, it's always size. And it's like, okay, so maybe he's not a natural centerman. Can he be a winger if he's
Yeah.
one of the highest skilled players in the draft with the best hands in the draft, who's just not whose draft stock's falling a little bit because of his size, and that not transition to the wing. And if that isn't the case, I hate to say it, the more time that goes on, the more I feel that 98 Connor Bedard could be a winger in the NHL.
Mhm.
I know that he was a right wing when he played for the World Juniors, when he did that, went on a generational run and scored the best World Junior goal in history. He was right wing to Logan Stankoven. And I can just see Bedard's game kind of being like a Kucherov, Kaprizov, Patty Kane, dynamic playmaking, play driving from the wing. Like he doesn't need to play the center of the ice in order to be this like dynamic, game-breaking top 10 player in the NHL. Hopefully he's the center of the ice because we are kind of banking on it. But I think if we take James Haggins, then there's a little bit of like interchangeability between the two. It's like, here, let's try Haggins with Bedard on the right. That's not working. Let's try Bedard in the middle, Haggins on the right, left, whatever. Yeah, so I was just kind of thinking about that. Is there a possibility that Haggins could play the wing, or is it a possibility that we take Haggins and move Bedsy over to the wing, which you can't do with Porter Martone?
Yeah, you absolutely cooked there. I found it interesting that you said Connor Bedard's comps were Kucherov, Kirill Kaprizov, because that was exactly what Michael Misa had said for his wing comps. I actually followed up with him and asked him who his center comps were, and it was Sidney Crosby as well as Patrice Bergeron. And I actually really like that because I also asked him what an underrated aspect of his game was, and it was his intensity, his 200-foot game, his defense. I think that he understands how to play it all. His scoring obviously was incredible, but if you look up last year, his defense, it was actually the same thing as Matthew Schaefer. Matthew Schaefer last year in the OHL had to prove that he could do it on the defensive side because he was always a good defensive player, but everybody just wants to prove more and more every single year. And then this year it was, oh my God. And then last year during the season, it was like, how are you going to get better offensively? This year, he just exploded on the offensive scene, destroyed his point totals from the year before. Misa did the exact same thing. James Haggins, in my opinion, is going to do the exact same thing in the NCAA next year. That's just a prediction, but I feel like it's going to be great. Basically, for the James Haggins thing, I think of him as like he was playing with two all-star point guard, shooting guard types in the NBA, and he was just playing, he was setting up at the corner for the three. He wasn't playing his complete role.
He's a freshman coming in with two NHL like ready, like in terms of college players, they're superstars. They're superstar college players. So you have this young freshman coming in. Of course, he's going to, send it over to the wing a little more than he should have. Of course, he's going to drive the center a little bit less than he should have because he's got Ryan Leonard, who's a fucking tank on his right wing. So I can see James Haggins just exploding in the NCAA next year, and a lot of people being like, "Whoa, shit, maybe we shouldn't have taken Caleb Desnoyers." Not that he's not a good player, but
And Caleb Desnoyers, to your point, his comp was Jonathan Toews. So